I don't think we're actually set up down there for this. Good idea.
Hey, Scott and Robert, I just need to let you know, I have to leave at 10:30.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I've got to be out by 11. So.
Just one moment. I got a call going.
Frank has something, and then Scott, do you want to start this meeting?
Yeah. Mike, are you prepared now?
Give me one moment here.
Okay. Well, okay, I'll start it then, and then I'll turn it over to the city engineer, and then I'll turn it over to Mike. So thanks. Welcome to the Public Works Committee agenda for our February 9th. The only item we're going to discuss today is the South Fire Station, kind of go over the specs for it, what the requirements are. I'll discuss a little bit about, why long-term we're going to need it. I think everyone's aware of the fact that people in the South Fire Station district and lower than that have seen their ISO rating rise from a 5 to a 9. And that means they're paying more for their insurance. Also, as the city of Ocean Shores continues to grow, that our first responders are primary health care facility for a lot of agency for a lot of people down here. And we need to be able to get within a response time of 5 minutes for both fires and for medical purposes, and allowing us to open the South Station would do that. We have a South Station that's down there, but it's never been manned permanently, and we're looking to man that structure permanently. And with that, that's why the meeting is, we're having it today to discuss the South Fire Station, and I'll turn it over to our Public Works Chief to give some introduction to that.
Okay, well, the background I have is that at some point this had gone to council, or the idea of a South Station addition. There had been a desire to what's called like a programming study. Do we have a programming study? Some questions about technical aspects of what kind of building should it be and what will it really cost. So subsequently, Nick Bird and I and Chief Tyree got in touch with Alan with Harbor Architects, who's done a lot of work on public buildings in both Grace Harbor County and including Ocean Shores to do that programming study, put some costs together. We've had some meetings with Alan. We've gone back and forth, and he's along with Chief Tyree is here today to present the findings.
Yeah, so Scott, you kind of took my thunder away from me. I was going to talk about a lot of that stuff, why we're here today and the history. And you're correct. Back in 2019, the Washington State Rating Bureau came and did their audit. And we actually moved from a fire protection rate of a 5 in the city down to a 4. Although the area that we did get hit on was the far south end of Ocean Shores, the city of Ocean Shores. And the reason of that was because of manpower down there and the response less than greater than 5 minutes for our fire engine, and also for the ladder truck down there, response time. So it was brought to the attention of the council back then, and I presented in 2019 for some funds to be pushed and earmarked into the 2020 and 2021 and 2022. No, sorry, 2020, 2021 budget to be earmarked so we can go forward on the South Fire Station, putting living quarters down there for the firefighters to live, so we could man it 24/7. We looked at, hired Harbor Architect, Alan Gozart, to work with us. We came up with a floor plan from a committee of myself, the volunteers, local 2109, and decided on a floor plan that could work for us, and was handed over to Alan to see if he can make something happen for us. We were looking at 3 different ways of doing it, whether we do a stick built on and add it onto the fire station, or if we do a modular or a that's attached, or a modular that's detached. And you'll see that in the report here coming up. As you guys all know, the South Station was built back in 2004, and that was for keeping our ISO rating down there. And back then, in those days, we did have volunteers back in those days. Unfortunately, times have changed. It's getting harder and harder to find volunteers. And so that was the reason why things have changed down there on the ISO rating, is because of our response times and the manpower down there. We are going to be needing also on top of this some staffing levels, which I will discuss later if you guys want to talk about that. But we will need to bring up our staffing levels of the fire department from what we currently have to at least a minimum of 8 firefighters to man both stations. That would be our minimum staffing, which is today at 4, to a minimum staffing of 6, which is we're going to need for doing both fire stations. So that's why we're here today, discuss it. Alan has come up with the 3 ways of doing what we could be looking at, rough cost. As you know, things have definitely changed back in 2019 before COVID. I'm no contractor, although, you know, I have some construction experience. I built my own house. I have, you know, being in the fire service, it's, you know, good to know construction to a certain point, but I'm not a contractor. Back in those days, I spoke to several contractors. They said at the time, figure about $400 a square foot for a commercial building. That was the rate I was working off of. But today things have definitely changed, so price wise. So I will let Alan take it here with the report that he came up with and discuss that.
Does everybody have a copy of that, Andy?
We should have it on the screen.
Or familiar enough with it?
Yeah, it's up on our screen, Alan, over here in Public Works, so we can see it. We're on page 1.
Okay, so the essence of this study is really a comparison between these 3 options of delivering the project. And to make a fairly long story very short, it appears to me that there's very little difference in a site-built delivery method versus any modular effort that would be delivered to the site, and then the on-site construction that was necessary beyond that. Given that, it's clear to me that site-built construction is much more durable. It would be probably quicker. And the scale of this project is so small that something other than site-built, the scale just isn't there for economy. And I believe it would be in the city's best interest to follow the path of a site-built structure. Now, these costs are fairly old, and I would hope that everybody is looking at this more or less as a comparison and not a very accurate statement of what our costs are today. When we prepared this, we saw lumber and plywood prices rising. Those have since come down a bit, but we're seeing virtually all other building materials have been going up. And also delivery of materials has been it's very hard to get a handle on those, and for contractors to get pricing to prepare their bids, quite often they're told, when you order the materials, I'll give you a price. And that's very, very, very difficult for contractors to deal with. So look at the study essentially as a comparison between these 3 delivery methods and not so much as an accurate cost estimate.
Sure, I believe
And
it.
I'm ready to answer any questions you might have.
Frank has something.
Al, I got a couple of questions on your pricing. One of them is, you used a modular company that does not make living quarters. And so I was curious why that you chose Wilscott for an example.
The reason why I went and connected Alan to Wilscott was because Wilscott is the one that built the current fire station we're in over at the North Station here. So they were familiar with the station here, and that was the reason why I connected Alan with it.
But you're telling me that the main fire station is a modular?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Well,
all the office space here is composed of, I don't know, 4 to 6 modulars that was brought in
Oh.
and then connected. And then the roof line is a truss system that was brought in. And then the bay, that is all stick built over there on that side.
Okay, well, I was just curious because they don't make anything that would accommodate firemen staying down there. So that's why it didn't make sense to me why you would go to them when they can't supply bedrooms, kitchens, you know, those kind of things.
Although
So it didn't seem like it was apples to apples, okay?
Uh.
A comparison to me on that. So that's
Actually, Will Scott did furnish us with a floor plan for what they can provide. They can provide the same spaces. It's a factory built option, and the factories that just about every modular company in the state of Washington I'm aware of uses a factory in Oregon.
well, that's different than the conversation I had with them, Al. So I asked them about that and they said they don't do that type of work. So I did make the call to check on that. So
Frank, who did you talk with?
I'd have to look his name up in the email, but I could do that. I didn't have that with me, but that's easy enough to come up with. But I was wondering why you added a bunch of stuff to this Wilscott modular, like roofing, sheeting, trusses, also the exterior siding, and that stuff comes already on a modular home. So I was curious why you added those costs onto this modular. That modular comes from Wilscott with siding on it.
Keep in mind, Frank, this is not a modular home. This is a modular application to a commercial structure. And these are the items that they indicated to us that had to be built on site. And it was the same typical application that we saw on the main fire station, that all these components had to be provided on site.
Okay.
Either before the modulars arrived and then after the modulars arrived as well.
Well, I did some cost comparing, and we're at West Ridge, using the same material that you do your stick built with, can come in a lot less expensive. And that would save a lot of money. They can do the sprinkler systems, they'll put it on a foundation, all that. And we're looking at a little over, and this is a few months ago now, mind you, 3 months ago, I believe. They can do it for a little over $200,000 and give the firemen more space than the stick built that you're looking at doing on the backside of that fire station. So I really think we ought to take a look at that type of an application versus what you have here on your examples.
One of the things we need to really pay attention to is meeting the WAC of 296, 305, 06501 through 06519. Make certain we meet all those requirements that are going to be needed for a fire station that's built. along with it being commercial and handicap accessible because it is a public building.
I don't know what those wax are, 'cause I don't have that in front of me. Can you fill me in on what all those requirements are? Because they can do the ADA, they can do the sprinkler systems, and you can say it's commercial, but the material is the same that goes into this West Ridge modular as it does that you're going to build on site. Same material.
I can definitely get that sent over to you. Some of the things that will be in there is it has to have emergency lighting. So when the tones go off, the lighting has to be triggered. The kitchen, for example, it will need to have the stove and the appliances shut off when the tones are dropped. It has to have your normal exit signs, everything a commercial building will need, plus additional few other things. Those are just things off the top of my head.
West Ridge, all that can be done with their building. So I think that we ought to take a look at saving quite a bit of money. We need to hire firemen. I think we need to save some money. So we can use it on hiring more staff for you, Mike.
I'm getting a very strange echo out here. I'm not sure what that is. Let's for now, Alan, I'm sorry. Why don't we just continue through this presentation, and then we can do sort of questions as we move on, just so we're following you.
Well, I think my presentation is essentially complete. And just to summarize, in my professional opinion, I don't see a large difference in costs between site built and factory built, and would recommend to pursue the site build option. I think a project manager from Roglan's Incorporated, a large contractor here in Aberdeen, had reviewed some of the findings that I presented and essentially concurred with my summary and conclusion. So that's our professional opinion, and so there you go.
Chief, did you have more you wanted to add to this?
No, I don't on the station wise. Just that I will get the information that Frank's asking sent over to all three of you on the council, so you can see those requirements for that is going to be required.
Can you send that to all the council members?
City Clerk, go ahead.
Hey, Mike, can you just send that directly to me and I will send that out with the video of this meeting and the agenda packet after?
Yes.
I'll
Thank
just, that goes to everybody and it'll just keep it in one location.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Frank.
Point, when I talked to Adam on the phone, he mentioned that the modular wouldn't last as long as stick built.
Frank, I'm on
You're
that.
having a problem with your microphone.
Your mic, get your mic.
Is that any better?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so I talked to Al on the phone and said that the stick built will last longer than a modular, and there's no data to back that up. And it's made from the same materials as the stick built. And so I'm looking at the city saving some money with a modular. They can put the exit signs in. There's things that you can add to these modulars, and this company's put 50 of these units in Ocean Shores. And with the cost of the modular and doing the foundation, bringing in utilities and all that, you're looking at a little over $200,000. That's a huge savings. We can use the extra money to hire firemen. I really would like us to take a hard look at that and go on that route. I sent the information to all the council members that I have here in front of me. I sent it also to John.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's my take on it. It's not a lesser of a building, and you can put the flooring in that you want. If you want different flooring, there's other options that you can work on this thing to make it work for you, Mike. And now you got money for firemen. If you look at this budget here that you got on here now. So I think it's important that we try to be smart with our money, so to speak.
Lisa, Bob, do you have any questions on this?
No, I've read through what Frank sent. I'll be interested to see as this process unfolds, what we go with.
I think, yeah, I looked at what Frank said too, and I think what he sent, and I think there is some merit to that. And I'd like to take a look at the wax, and anytime we can get a good quality building for less money, I think we do need to look at that, especially if it does free up some funding for firefighters. But I want to make sure that it complies with the wax, so I'd like to take a look at that.
All right, then, since I'm not entirely sure, are there any other questions or comments about this before we close this meeting out? Angie, do you have anything?
No, I was just gonna ask if, has any of this information been sent to the permit department or planning to see if this proposal that Frank's saying would be allowable? I mean, has that process been vetted at all?
I haven't done anything with it, no.
Yeah,
I think that would be a good move.
we can send it over there to see. I mean, there's some permit costs they'll have, and there's zoning issues, setback issues. I don't think for it, my personal opinion is this project's two things. One thing is that the fire department needs, if we all agree, or the fire department needs a station on the south, one way or the other. I've got a 30-50 year mentality. I don't want to see us putting something that's going to fall apart out there. But whether it's stick built or it's brought in as an addition, I don't personally have a concern either way. If it's one or the other, I wouldn't fall my sword over it being something you brought in or something you stick built. At a certain point, we have to make a decision because we got to bid something. And whether, if that goes out to bid as a modular unit that's brought in and is married to this building, that's fine. That all takes work. I don't think this is cut and dry, but if we did go that route, I'm not really opposed to it. I want to see Mike get a fire station. But if it does go out to bid that way, Will Scott can build it, Westbridge can build it. And it's just whatever the general contractor decides to bring in, it's or approved equal. So anyways, that's my take on it, but certainly we'll work with Alan to get, if there's additional information that's requested, we'll look into it.
One thing I would like.
One other thing to consider is we've got overlapping jurisdictions when we look at a modular option. They're all built and inspected under Labor and Industries supervision. And then anything on the site is, of course, the City of Ocean Shores Building Department. If there's ever an addition or modification to the modular, that's going to be under the supervision of Labor and Industries. So anytime you modify a modular building, then you have that to deal with.
I just want to clarify on that a little bit. One of the things, my concern is safety for my firefighters. By having a detached building, we're going to have to do a breezeway or a walkway going from one building to the other. Being 3 o'clock in the morning, wind blowing, rain blowing, going through a breezeway. These guys are in the main living station trying to get over to the apparatus bay. A lot of times they're in shorts, they're in their socks trying to get to the equipment that's over in the other section. All these things need to be a concern about, and I agree, and I've heard this, what Alan just said, that any attachments going on to a home is going to have to be approved for L&I, any changes structural wise to that building. So my biggest thing is I want to make certain we're meeting all the WACs, all the RCWs for the fire station, that the guys are safe, and also that we aren't coming back in 20 years and replacing roofs, and replacing sinks, replacing toilets. These guys are very tough on things. They are not gentle on things. I've been here for 22 years. I know what they do. I've seen chairs that lazy boy chairs get destroyed here within just 5 years because what goes on. I mean, they're just hard on items around here, period. So it's gotta be quality equipment. It's gotta be quality stuff that's gonna hold up. Otherwise, we're gonna be putting money into the structure constantly. We'll be constantly coming back asking for repairs. And that's my 2 cents. And again, on the other side of it, doing real estate on the side, I've seen manufactured homes and how they look on the south end. The weather conditions down there are very rough on them down there. A 20-year roof, it's going to last 10 years. So if we're going to do a station, a manufactured home, we need to make certain we do a 40 or a 50-year roof on there, so we're not replacing roofs again soon. That's just my 2 cents and my experience.
Angie, then Frank.
I was just gonna say, wouldn't it be similar to how the police station is wearing and tearing right now?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and we're talking about needing a new building after 30 years or whatnot, because that building's just not suitable. I mean, if you want to see the wear and tear of how it would look, just take a walk through the police station. And
Right.
we've been constantly doing repairs and additions and all kinds of projects on that building.
You know, you can't replace maintenance. So you build anything and you let it sit there and it doesn't get attended to, it's going to fall apart. There's plenty of stick-built houses that look just as bad as anything else here in town. Having L&I involved with what you're doing with the structure is not a downside. They're going to make sure things are done right. And that's the state. They're pretty easy to get out with a phone call to look at what you're working on. So, you know, as far as the prices that I get passed out, that I got quotes on for 3 places, I guess. One, they're bigger than what you're talking about giving the firemen, so they'd have more room. But the other is you can change the sink. You can have the 30-year roof or 40-year roof or whatever you want put on there. You know, there's plenty of modulars that people paint and take care of that last 50 years. And it's the same, remember, it's the same material as what you're doing in a stick built, except for it's built in a factory, in a warehouse and shipped out here. Same 2x6s, same siding, all of that's the same. So you can't say that a stick built lasts longer than a modular. It would only do that if you didn't take care of the modular. Stick builts don't last that long either if you don't get them painted and maintain them. And that's one of the issues we have here in town, maintenance.
Angie, and I thought that was Lisa Scott with a question, but that was Lisa Scott saying goodbye to us.
Well, I was just gonna point to I don't know if you guys have read that report that Alan put out in entirety, but page 2 kind of talks about his professional opinion and the fact that, you know, over the life cycle, it's going to be less expensive. It's going to last longer. The joints in the modular units. I mean, I think page 2 of that report's a perfect, I mean, we can choose to go one way, but the professional opinion of the person we hired to do this is saying this. So in the end, it's a council decision, but you got to be aware, I mean, it's right in the report that if we choose to go against the recommendation of the professional, there's a list of things that are going to be concerns going forward. So.
Mayor Pro Tem Peterson, were you going to say something before Frank or no? Or do you want to go back to Frank again? Yeah, go ahead, and then I'll turn it back to Frank.
No, I'm okay.
Oh, you're all right? Okay. Right, Frank?
All right. My conversation with Al was, does he have any documentation for his opinions? And he didn't have any documentation for his opinions. There's plenty of information out there that states that a modular lasts as long as a stick built. So I'm not going to go with that comment that Al put down here that they don't last as long, because they do. It's the same material. Think about it. It's the same material.
Chief?
Yeah, I just want to say, you know, we're going to have to do upgrades. I mean, as simple as the sinks, as simple as the toilets going in there, all those things are going to be additions and additional costs. So it's going to drive up the price up to where we're at, probably looking at eventually at the end of the day with what we got this report to study on.
Okay, Alan, let me let you go, then I'll let Mayor Pro Tem go.
Okay.
Alan, go ahead.
One thing I've noticed comparing modular to stick-built construction is the workmanship level of quality. There's quite a difference that we've seen between factory-built and stick-built. You'll find that factory-built laborers are paid a quarter or a third what stick-built contractors are being paid. Now, you might say, well, we can save a lot of money by the virtue of that, but the quality definitely does suffer. And it's just something I've experienced over the years. Also, a site-built contractor is going to be local, and we're shuffling a little more local dollars into the economy and keeping somebody employed locally. I think that's worth something.
Mayor Pro Tem Peterson.
Yeah, I'm just gonna relate my own experiences, okay? My own experiences, I own a house down right near the jetties where we get the brunt of the weather, not far from the South Station. And it was a manufactured home. And I do maintenance on it all the time in the summertime when the weather's good. And I noticed that after about 8 years that the siding, no matter what I did, was going. So I had it hardy planked all the way around. And so I think that the siding, and I think that's what people see when they see manufactured homes like down in this area. They see the siding and it doesn't last as long as maybe it should. And that's just something I would like to caution people. The interior of the home is fine. We haven't had to replace anything inside, but again, in the exterior, and not everyone can afford to go ahead and do something like that, but we need to be thinking about that with what we put on the side of that thing.
All right, well, Frank, let's do one last comment and then I'll kind of give some closing thoughts.
Okay, that's a good point, Bob, that you made on that, and you can have whatever siding you want put on the building. So, all those are options on that. And I just say, I think, we're spending the public's money. We should be careful with what we spend. And they all want this fire station manned. I do too. And I think we need to use the money we can save to hire more firemen. That's the last I got to say.
Angie?
So I would just ask, since we're talking about we can put a different roof or different siding or whatever on a modular, Frank, is that stuff included in your bids that you went out and got? I mean, are we comparing apples to apples here, or is the 200,000 just base price for anything?
Well, I don't know what items would have been added. So I've got a base price on that, but it's hugely cheaper than what's on here. So if somebody wants to give me the authority to get pricing with certain items on it, I'll be more than happy to do that and get that information back to everybody.
Yeah, I just think we got to be real cautious about saying it's going to cost 200,000, but then we're going to add a bunch of upgrades to it to make it comparable. So,
well, I don't think we'll be adding $300 or $100 and some $1,000 worth, but yeah, that's fair. If people want me to get the estimate, I will on that, and we can see what it's going to cost.
Mayor Pro Tem Peterson.
Just have one question. At our last meeting, it was discussed, I believe, that someone was going to try to arrange a tour of the South Station for the council. I'm very interested in doing that. Since I've seen the outside a bazillion times, I'd like to see what the inside looks like and get up a little closer to it and take a look. So is that something that you were going to arrange, Scott, or who was going to do that?
That was Chief Tyree was going to arrange that, and I don't know,
Okay.
I mean, it would be ideal to do it before we have the next council meeting.
Wouldn't it? Yeah.
So they can see it before we bring this back to council on the 14th.
Yeah.
Chief, is that something you're able to?
Yeah, I can accommodate, just name a time and a date that works for you. I'd like to do, a few at a time instead of individually, of course. And I could give a tour of the South Station, no problem.
All right, so maybe Chief, our next steps is why don't you copy me, copy Mayor Martin, and just shoot out a letter to council saying they're gonna be doing tours of the South Station, and we'd like to have these done before we meet for council on the 14th to do this review. Does that sound reasonable?
Exactly.
Okay. Frank?
And you could do it, we could do it with, maybe with, say, a half-hour tour for half of us, another half hour for the rest of us. And so you wouldn't have to make 2 trips down there, 2 or 3 trips.
Yeah, because there's a couple people, like, I'm not sure Allison's client schedule, but I don't think she's off really until 4. So there's a few people that probably won't be able to do it during work hours, but.
Do you guys think the weekends are best to do one of them, or do you want evening hours,
I would
daytime
send it to
hours?
council and ask them, like, you know, pick 2 or 3 days and say, you prefer this, you prefer that, like, kind of thing. You know, one during the day and maybe one after work.
Yeah, and maybe have people plug into it. Yeah.
Hey,
Frank,
Scott? Yeah, Scott, so do you want to give me the specifications that you've got in this pricing that I'll put in the pricing? I don't know what, all I know is when I talked to the Will Scott, they wouldn't accommodate living space. Do you want me to get some accurate bids for you?
now I'm gonna defer to the city engineer on that. Go ahead, Robert.
I can't control what you do, but I would like to see what that is, because I share Angie's concerns that that if it's not apples to apples, this discussion is taking a lot of staff time too. The most efficient thing for me is that if you're interested in Westbrook, send us over. We'll have Alan look at it. You've got all the information there. Again, I just want to see Mike get a station. But I'd also like this to be an efficient discussion.
Angie?
I was just wondering if you should tack on a tour of the police station as well, so you can kind of show people what those modulars look like after time.
We can ask to do that. I know they've been COVID leery and the South Station. Completely
Sure.
innocent. So we'll, you know, we can reach out to Chief Logan on that. But yeah, I mean, that's the difference. The South Station being completely unoccupied, we don't have those concerns. So
Is the South Station currently, does that have a brick exterior?
It's a hardy board exterior, lap
Okay.
siding.
All right, so that's what Frank, we need to get that price on it too, with the hardy plank on it.
Sure.
all right, well, I think we have a good idea of next steps. Obviously, we're going to be revisiting this in less than about a week. On Monday, we'll have, on the 14th, we'll have council. We'll be discussing this in more detail. In the meantime, Frank, let's hope that Frank send that our way, but Mike, just make sure everyone gets an opportunity to take a tour of that station, and we'll reconvene this conversation.
Excellent.
All right, I thank everyone for coming. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.